The following program contains the opinions of the host, guests, and call-in participants. These do not necessarily represent the views of this show's distributors or sponsors. This program may contain obscene, profane, or otherwise objectionable language. Viewer discretion is advised. Oh my God, who would have thunk it? We're here. I was going to say we're queer and we're proud, but we're not queer. It's 9 p.m. on the East Coast of the United States, 6 p.m. on the West Coast, 8 a.m. in Singapore, 12 noon in Sydney, Australia, and here where I'm sitting in Northeast Minneapolis, it's 8 p.m. Central Time. I'm Jim Peters, and welcome to another edition of Jim Peters at Night. This is episode number 190, and you'll notice we got new digs here. So now I gotta preface this, I guess, since mid-October, almost to the day, we have been working out of my office. I can't get into the details, but we were not in the studio we were in before. Now we're in another one, and it's much better. We've made a whole bunch of upgrades. As a matter of fact, you'll notice we got a little background behind now. Now, I'm not fooling anybody here. This background's fake. But the thing is, we were like, for example, previously we were using the green screen. Now we're using, believe it or not, I know you probably won't believe this, we're using AI to put in the background. And we're doing a bunch of other stuff with AI too. No, I am real. Now, we had Brian Trilley, the philosopher, the tech guy, on, about 4 or 5 months ago. And during that conversation, I happened to mention that I don't think anybody, an AI bot, could replace me doing this sort of thing. And he said, "Well, that's already happened." I said, "Yes, I do know, and I've heard it." And the thing is, yes. And he even sent me some examples after the fact of AI the hosting radio shows. And actually, they do a very competent job. I got to say, you really can't tell. But the thing is, there's no quirkiness there. I mean, these bot people, whatever you want to call them, they're not interesting at all. But they do, yeah, they'll ask the right questions and all that sort of stuff. They can do the job. Yeah. Yeah. But if you want, you get tired of that in like 20 minutes. Because why are you watching this? Because I'm goofy. That's why. And I know it. And you know it too. So yeah, so we got the whole thing going on here. It's actually pretty cool. I gotta say, we're just all getting used to it. A bunch of new buttons. Now we got a new call-in number. Yes, we do, and it's on the bottom of the screen. And so you're not gonna believe this. It's 325 call Jim. That's the number. That translates to 325-225-5546, which is on the scroll on the bottom of the screen here. And but yeah, it's 325 call Jim. So you can call in now. We're no longer on Blog Talk Radio. They were providing our telephone number before. They are folding. They actually got a couple of weeks left, or we decided to get out early. So yeah, but we got a new telephone number here. When you call up, you'll get another AI person asking you to summarize why you want to talk on the show. And believe it or not, so there's a little, I think you got 15 seconds, if I'm right, to come up with a little snippet. That snippet is translated by Google Translate into words and printed on my screen here off to the side. So you can actually communicate with me before you actually come on. Freaking amazing. All this stuff's damn amazing. And then on top of that, we still got the same text number we had before, 408-458-5088. And I got, okay. I just realized I forgot to load it up. So don't do that tonight. What's my problem? I'll tell you. Too much stuff going on here. It's all new. So this is kind of a beta program here, especially the call-in thing. So it's the very, very first time we ever used it. Now, well, let me tell you what happens the rest of this week. We're not doing a show tomorrow, Wednesday. Thursday, the dynamic duo are going to be here. That's Jeff Meyer, the CEO and publisher of Conk.News, and Jennifer Oliver O'Connell from redstate.com and asagirlturns.com. They're the tag team. They come on once a month. So they're going to be on Thursday. We usually don't do shows here on Friday, but this is really important. Starting next week, we will. So we've been doing Monday through Thursday here since we started 18 months ago. But I have to tell you, after going through the first year, we had done almost exactly 150 shows. Now, if you can do any math, there's 52 weeks in a year. That means that we were basically only doing 3 shows a week. So, I mean, we're skipping them. I basically have a pact with my wife here. As long as I'm not making big dollars doing this, I will cancel for family activities, and I've been doing that, and all sorts of other stuff going on. So we've been averaging 3 nights a week, even though we advertise, so we do 4 nights a week. So what we're going to do starting next week is we're going to be doing Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. So the Monday and Wednesday shows will almost always be live. The Friday show will usually be pre-taped on Thursday afternoon. Not always, but usually. So we might go live every once in a while too, and we'll announce that. We got to upgrade our website. That's basically the last thing we have left to do here. Put all this new information on it. Change all the stuff. We got off of Blog Talk Radio. So we're doing Monday, Wednesday, and Friday starting next week. Usual round of guests are going to be here. We got all sorts of. I got another pretty good announcement too. I'm very happy about this. I'm going to have some help booking guests. We have arranged for that. It's my cousin Steve, but he'll be really good at it. He will. So I'm looking forward. I love the guy. Looking forward to him working with him. So he said, and he volunteered, and I thought, God, how lucky can I get? Because he's perfect. And sooner or later, I'm going to try to get him on come on the show, maybe at least once a week. I don't know. We'll figure it out. But it's that's what we got going on here. So you call up tonight, 325 call Jim 325-225-5546. That's the number. In the meantime, it's winter here, and I'm in Minneapolis, and it sucks. My wife of 35 years is so tired of listening to me bitch about this, but it's cold here. It was 9 degrees below zero this morning. That was the actual temperature, not any of this wind chill crap. The wind chill was 26 below. Now, that's actually, believe it or not, it usually, especially around, this is mid-January. Usually in mid-January, we have 2 or 3 days that are usually 20 below or worse. Now, the Thrill List website made a list. They listed all the 50 states and basically the order of how bad their winters are. And Minnesota came in second. Believe it or not, North Dakota came in first. But North Dakota doesn't really have any major cities. Minneapolis are the Twin Cities, the metro, 3.5 million people here. We're the 15th largest city in the United States. And so we are easily, Minnesota came in second place on the list, and we're easily the largest city on that list. And the other thing is, I think I mentioned this before, we basically battle with Moscow as the coldest major city in the world. It depends how you define major city. I think the general definition is 2 million people or more, I think. So, and Moscow is also on the 45th parallel. So we are both, Moscow and Minneapolis are both the northernmost cities on the planet in the northern hemisphere. And of course, they're communists, or they were used to be, and Minnesota's radically liberal. So we're communists too. Matter of fact, our friend David Strom at Hot Air wrote a story about that today, about there's stuff going on in the Minnesota legislature, and I don't want to really delve into it because it's local news. But basically, they tied. They have a tie in the number of seats, but there's some thought that maybe the reason they're tied is because the Democrats cheated on one of the elections for one of the local reps, or it's really complicated, and it's just like you don't want to hear it. But anyway, you're wondering on that list that Trillist came out with. That's Trillist.com. Matter of fact, I'm going to post this on our blog, this link here, because it's goofy. North Dakota was first. We were second. Michigan was third, and Michigan comes in third on that list, mostly because of the UP, or the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, where it's just brutally brutal. It's worse than here. It is. Well, even northern Minnesota. I mean, we're in the southern third of the state, Minneapolis. You go to Duluth, for 250 miles north of here. At the beginning of the 20th century, there was some thought that Duluth was going to eclipse Chicago as the second largest city in the United States. That's because because of mining and gold and silver and all sorts of stuff going on up there. There was a boatload of money. It's like there were more millionaires, and of course that's when $1 million actually mattered 120 years ago. There were more millionaires in Duluth and per capita than any other city in the United States, including New York City, So there was thought that and also Duluth is physically beautiful. That's the other thing. And why didn't that happen? Because it's cold as fuck up there. That's why. Oh my God, if you think it's bad here, it's only 250 miles north of here. And my God in heaven, of course, it's the tip of Lake Superior, which is the largest freshwater body in the world. And the lake just retains cold, and it's just brutal. And that's exactly what's going on in the UP of Michigan too. It's the winters up there are unbelievable. I have a friend of mine who lives and he lives in Wisconsin, but 30 miles from the UP border. And yeah, it's harsh, man. It's harsh. And I think it was South Dakota came in fourth on that list, and Wisconsin came in fifth. So, but yeah, if you take the UP out of Michigan, the lower part of Michigan's probably not that bad, but then you got Detroit, which is the other major city on the list, the second one. So I don't know if I can count Milwaukee. I just don't. It's like Milwaukee is a nice place, but I don't even know if they have 2 million people there. I don't even know that. So yeah, that's what's on my mind. It was just cold as hell here today. So meanwhile, while I'm bitching about the weather in Minneapolis, in Washington, D.C., Pete Hegseth had the beginning of his first hearing for confirmation as Secretary of Defense under the Trump administration. It went really well for him because he handled it really well. And, oh my God, we got a caller. Hold on just a second. I'm going to talk to this person. Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Is this the great Jimmy?
Yeah.
Yes. This is J.D. Vance.
Oh, it is, huh? Okay.
How you doing, my man?
Oh yeah. Oh, I'm good.
I'm
good. Got a new phone system here. Thank you for calling in and testing it. I appreciate it. So yeah, JD.
Oh, yeah, you're welcome. I wouldn't miss a chance to call in on your show. Do you have any guests right now, or is it just us?
No. Tonight's a solo show. I'm just kind of looking at this as a beta broadcast. I mean, I already realized I forgot to do one thing, so I got a whole bunch of new buttons here, a bunch of new equipment, all bunch of sort of stuff. So, and I look fabulous.
Right, so listen,
Are you watching this?
Yes, I'm sorry. I didn't know you had a show going on tonight, or I wouldn't have bothered. But I just wondered if I could borrow some of your hard-on cream.
I don't need it because all this fancy new equipment just gives me an erection. You know that.
Oh, that's fantastic. Well, the Donald wants me to try to keep up with him, and I'm gonna need some cream, if you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, Donald's, God love him. Donald's a little overweight. I don't know how that's working out for him. I mean, the obesity thing. Once you get to a certain size, man, that performance issue becomes tough.
He told me he's 185.
He's lying.
Oh, come on. We've been through that already.
Have we?
Yeah. He told me he's done with that.
Oh, okay. What, doing the thing, you mean? Is he done with that?
No, lying. No, he said he was done lying.
Oh, okay.
Well, listen. Is there anything I can do to help you test your program here? Because I've got work I got to get back to. Running the country is a lot of effort.
You're not having any trouble hearing me, are you?
No, you sound great.
Good. You do too. You sound good too. So this,
okay.
I think I appreciate you calling. This is good. So,
okay. Well, listen. From the Don and I, we wish you nothing but the best of success.
Thank you. Tell Don I said hello, would you?
Well, I will. And we've only got really like 5 true fans, and you and your friends are 4 of the 5. So I appreciate it.
Oh yeah, thank you. Appreciate that too. Yeah, I do. All right, my man.
Just a second. Oh, there, I just lost my hat. I'm in Greenland. It's really windy. You know what I'm saying?
Oh yeah. There's only 57,000 people that live in Greenland. You know that? Oh, by the way, you might. Hold up. You might find this interesting. I had this on the rundown for tonight, but I'll mention it because you brought that up about the fact that somebody did a study on by country which women had the largest breasts.
Yeah.
Greenland was dead last.
Is that right?
Yeah, actually it is. Norway was first. Norway, and then the United States, and then Great Britain. But Norway was first. And the unusual thing about this, and I'm coming full circle here, is Norway also had the least number of overweight and obese people, because generally women who are overweight and obese have larger breasts than women that aren't. So there you go. I thought you'd find that fascinating.
Don't tell the Don.
Being the perv that you are.
He'll lose all interest in Greenland.
I'm sorry, I missed that. What?
I said, don't tell Don. He'll lose all interest in Greenland.
Yeah. Okay. I won't. All
right.
Okay, my man. Thanks for calling in. Appreciate it.
Keep up the good work. Okay.
Whatever that is. Yeah, sure. I will. All right. Thank you.
All right.
See ya. Bye-bye. All right. So that's our new phone system there. That's JD Vance calling in. And we love him. You know that. So he says he's in Greenland. Yeah, right. Where it's the only place on the planet that's colder than Minneapolis right now. So I was talking about Pete Hegseth's confirmation hearing today. So the Democrats, and especially the female Democrats, just went nuts on this guy. They just attacked him mercilessly, and he handled it just incredibly well, just completely professionally. He didn't even really bother to snap back at them. He just handled it, and he said what he thought. Because one of the things they're really pissed about, this would be the female Democrats, is the fact that Hegseth, and he did not deny it during the hearing either, at all. He is basically, he has come out saying he does not think women should be in combat roles in the U.S. military. And, of course, the women totally disagreed. They thought that, well, if you can meet the requirements, you should be able to do it. And that is assuming that the requirements aren't changed, and usually they are. So, I mean, this is a very dicey situation here, but there's an overarching theme that I thought of just listening to all this morning. We're living in a society right now where people they want to be someone they're not. I mean, there's no getting around the fact that men physically are stronger than women. There's just no getting around it. I mean, women can do some things men can't do too, ergo give birth, which in some ways explains the entire dynamic of society, because the reason men do so many disruptive things is because they're one, they're trying to impress women, or it's to make up for the fact they can't reproduce, one or the other. I mean, there are a lot of people thinking it's more the second than the first. I mean, psychologists have been talking about this for a million years, so I don't need to kind of go into this per se. But I thought about that. So, you have the thing that, well, if a woman can meet the same standards of a man, she should be able to do it. And yeah, but the thing is, very few women actually can meet it. Physically, I'm talking about physically now. Not talking about mentally. And you look at and then I was thinking about that, like the trans community. Now, this thing, well, this is a problem with politics here in general in the United States, and basically any contentious subject, and that is everyone's always trying to dumb down everything, and things are always way more complicated than people want them to be. I know I've said on this show, transsexualism is real. It is real, but very, very few people suffer from it, if you want to call it suffer a malady. So I've said that, I've told the story before, I'm going to tell it again. Don Zorro comes on the show. He's been a regular on the show for 5 years. Now, I've been doing Jim Peters at Night for 18 months, but before this, I did podcasts and radio shows for Conk News. I was the editor-in-chief there, which is one of the reasons they sponsor the show. Very nice of them, Jeff Meyer and company. But so I did, we had a show on Conk News called Conk News Weekend. It was a panel discussion. We had a standing panel every week. We taped it on Thursday afternoon. We posted it on Friday. For a while, we did a live on the radio for a while. But Don has always been a part of that. He's been a part of this for like 5 years now. So this is at Conk News, and we're doing this show. And when the trans thing came up, and Don says to me, and Don and I are almost exactly the same age. We're 1 month apart. And we're in our 60s. Who am I fooling? Even though, God, man, the lighting here, the new lighting makes me look pretty damn good. Anyway, so Don says to me, this is during the broadcast. He says, Jim, he said, we're the same age. We're in our 60s. How many transgender people have you known in your life? And I said, 2. And he said, yes, for me too. It's 2, So the problem is, now, people who are advocating for the trans community say, well, the reason I didn't know more is because a lot of trans people are in the closet. And I know that's actually true. But here's another thing too. Unlike homosexuality, the vast majority of people who think they're trans aren't. They're mentally ill. They're mentally disturbed. But a few of them aren't. That's the problem. You basically have to be a psychologist to figure out the real ones from the fake ones. How do I know that's not true on homosexuality? Testosterone. Everyone knows who they want to have sex with. It's not a question at all. It's like I've said, I'm a heterosexual individual. You put a gun up to my head and said, I want you to stick your erection in this man's rectal area, and I could not do it. I couldn't. It would not. And I'm not talking about the fact I literally couldn't get an erection. I could not do it. And that's true of most men. Whereas if you're gay, you have no trouble. Not only you have no trouble with that, you enjoy that. Right. So it's not really an issue at all. Everyone understands gayness is very obviously I think it's obviously a genetic trait. I can go into the science or the speculative science on why it exists and all this sort of stuff. I won't. The last time I did this, Tim Conaway, who was also one of the other panelists on Conk News Weekend, he's called me nuts. So I won't do that. But that's the difference here. Transsexualism is largely, by the majority of people who embrace it, is largely a mental disorder. But not for everybody. And that's the problem. It's a real thing. But the number of real transgender people in the United States, it's probably 1/10 of 1%. It's probably 1 out of every 1,000 people. And I know like the New York Times, there are people trying to tell you it's more than that. It isn't. That's BS. It's crap. There's very, very few, relatively speaking, there's very, very few transgender people in society. But the thing is, so what you have are the people, well, I'll call them the fake transgenders, for lack of a better term, and they're basically trying to be something or someone they aren't. And we have this problem, and I use this just an example. This is throughout society. People seem not to be happy with their lot in life. And of course, you can probably go back millennia and talk about this, but we can't confuse that with reality. So, you women want to be in combat roles in the military. And also, I want to point out here, and Pete has done a very good job pointing this out too. He's not saying women shouldn't be in the military. He's not saying that at all. He's saying they shouldn't be in combat, and it's both the fact that they can meet the physical demands are dubious, and also the dynamic of warfare. Here's another example. The assistant fire chief of Los Angeles County is a woman named Kristen. I can't remember her name, because the thing is, and this was brought up, that all of the women involved in in prominent roles in the LA Fire Department, all of them are named Christian. All of them. It's just some coincidence. Some people think some of them actually changed their names so that they'd all be Christian. But yeah, so anyway, her name's Kristen. I can't remember her last name is. But she said on a podcast, on a video, she said that, well, people have asked me, if my husband's in a fire, how do you rescue him? And her answer to that was, if your husband's in a fire, he's in the wrong place. And that's the biggest bunch of crap ever, because your job is to rescue people in a fire. That's your job. And if you can't do it, then you can't do your job. This stuff really pisses me off. It does. So you gotta excuse me. You my point is that it seems like people want to be something they aren't. And so these women went after Pete today, and they're, about and it was mostly women, although there were some men who did too. But they were yelling and screaming at him, and then there's Elizabeth Warren, bless her heart. Now, this is completely lost to history at this point, but you do have to understand this. Elizabeth Warren was originally a Republican. And also, she got her. If it wasn't for the fact that she lied about being a Native American, the public would have never heard of her, because basically everything in her life that's come to her in terms of professionally has been because of that lie. She was promoted in college as a professor. She got jobs as college as a professor. She was promoted in government because of her supposed Native American blood, which completely doesn't exist. Now, also, you look at that woman, isn't she the whitest damn woman on the planet? Isn't she? I have people in my family who have Native American blood. They don't look like her. Maybe they don't look Native American, but they don't look like her. I mean, my God in heaven. And so I actually wonder, and this is entirely speculative, I have no proof of this or evidence to this whatsoever, that she switched from Republican to Democrat because she knew the Democrats would be easier to fool. That's why I actually think that. It's like and this woman is a first class grifter. If it wasn't for this lie about her genetic makeup, no one had ever heard of her ever. She would just be some professor, associate professor, some community college somewhere, So anyway, she really laid into Hegseth too, and Hegseth handled it masterfully. And you're wondering, well, why don't I have clips to show you this? And first of all, I can't license them, and secondly, I don't have the time to prepare this sort of stuff. Running this broadcast is enough for me. So, but yeah, this is I think after today, I think he is going to get confirmed. I thought that eventually anyway. Matter of fact, my boyfriend Bill O'Reilly, he's been saying for the longest time that he does not think RFK Jr. is going to be confirmed, and I disagree. The only person I didn't think wasn't going to was Matt Gaetz, and not because of the scandals, which is terrible. This is terrible because the thing is, I didn't even realize this at first. I thought this was all made up crap, but apparently even the Republicans are saying Matt did this crap with these underage girls. I mean, this is like allegedly, but there are people in Congress, there are Republicans who said he actually did this too. But the reason I thought he would be confirmed is the overarching thing, and that is people just don't like this guy. He's apparently an unlikable person. I've never met him. But that's the complaint on the buzz I hear among people in Congress, is he just personally is not likable. And for that reason alone, I thought he was not going to get confirmed. But he's out. He's gone. So I think Pete's going to make it. I think RFK will too, maybe just barely, but I think he will. I don't see anybody's right now that Trump has nominated as not being confirmed. We'll see if I'm right. I've been wrong before. I was wrong once in 1972 in high school. That's the last time. No, that's not true. That's not true. All right. I predicted the election in November almost perfectly, except for I thought Harris was going to win Arizona. That's the only thing I was wrong about. I got the electoral college count within 10. I got all the battleground states. I predicted all of it except that one thing. I thought Harris was going to win Arizona, and she didn't. And I had Mark Tapscott on here, the congressional correspondent for the Epoch Times, and that was his prediction and mine matched. We never actually talked about Arizona per se, so I don't know what happened there. But meanwhile, speaking of that, our current president, who's president now for 6 more days, he this weekend got up on some soapbox somewhere and said, he could have beaten Trump, and not only that, he's pretty certain Kamala could have beaten him too. He actually did say that. Well, Kamala had her chance, man. You know, as I I'm starting. I've been wondering for like 3 years if Joe Biden's problem is senility, dementia, or the fact he's a disillusioned human being. And although he is definitely suffering from cognitive decline at this point, there's no doubt about it. He is he is nonetheless a delusional human being. He actually, I mean, he really thinks he could have beat Trump. And the reason it turns out this was being released now to the press is that the reason they kicked him off the ticket was because in his polling he was losing 400 electoral votes. 400. Now, everyone says, and Trump included, that what happened on November 5th was a landslide. It wasn't. It was a decisive victory, but it was not a landslide. Landslides are 400 electoral votes or more. Landslides are how Jimmy Carter lost and how Walter Mondale lost. Walter Mondale won only 10 electoral votes against Ronald Reagan in 1984. Jimmy Carter won, I think, 49, if I'm right. Those are landslides, but it was still a decisive victory nonetheless. I'm not trying to take anything away from Trump. It's just that one of my complaints is that people don't use precise language, and also one of my complaints is that, like I said, everyone tries to simplify everything, and things in America and the world are not that simple. They just aren't, But the thing is, the press assumes you don't have either the time or the intelligence to take it in, and I disagree. That's one of the reasons I'm doing this show. It's like, no, you're not stupid. You can understand this stuff, and I will take the reason I have the time. I got the time to talk about it, so I got an endless amount of time. Although I've talked about this before, it's amazing. So I've been doing this now for 4 or 5 years. When I started, I was looking at a bunch of podcasts like Dan Bongino and Ben Shapiro and those guys, and I'm looking at them, and I started to notice that almost all the episodes timed out to almost exactly an hour, but they weren't exact. I mean, like for example, Dana Lash is on the radio, so if you look at her daily podcasts from her show, they're almost to the second at the exact same amount, because the thing is, on the radio, she has to fit an exact time. But Shapiro, Bongino, Joe Rogan. Well, Joe Rogan's an exception, but those guys didn't. And I always was curious. Well, hour exactly, and it turns out for whatever reason, that's kind of the exact amount of time you need. Excuse me. On Thursday, we'll start running Conk News commercials again. Not tonight. Too much stuff going on. Like I said, I already screwed up the text message thing. I screwed it up. So we're trying to incorporate all this stuff here. But yeah, so Biden is he's a man who's fooling himself. I mean, this presidency did not go well. As a matter of fact, Jimmy Carter just passed away, and like Jeff Meyer was on 2 weeks ago, and we were talking about him. Jimmy Carter was maybe a very honorable man, but his presidency did not go well, and you can't sugarcoat it at this point. He was a failure as a president. He was. I think he had a problem. The kind of standard line on Carter is that he was in over his head internationally when he took the office of the presidency. He was governor of Georgia, and that he did well. But when he got into the presidency, there was either the international stuff and there's the juggling too many balls was he couldn't do it. I think his problem was actually, and this is more of a personal thing, and it also applies to Biden too. I think that his judgment was just bad. I saw this documentary on American Masters on PBS on the Carter presidency. It was 2 hours long, and Chris Matthews was kind of the narrator, and he was a part of the Carter administration, which is actually the reason he ended up on television. But I noticed during the show, it seems like at every crucial point in Carter's presidency, he made exactly the wrong decision. At every single one. I mean, it's like it was uncanny. And that's been my complaint with him, even post presidency in the Carter Center, and he was trying to negotiate uh, treaties among countries and helping them and stuff. It's like his judgment was always wrong. I don't, and of course people have accused Biden of the same thing. It was Robert, now I can't remember his name. He was a defense secretary or what, like 20, 30 years ago. He said, his quote was that Joe Biden had never made the right decision on foreign affairs in his entire career or something like that. And he hasn't, you know? So I don't know. And the other thing is all this talk about for years about the fact that Trump lies. And yeah, okay, Trump is a serial exaggerator. He's a salesman. That's what he does. He's selling watches now. Like what, really? I'm listening to Sean Hannity on the radio driving around, and he's selling watches. And it's like unless it's an AI voice, it's him. He says, Donald J. Trump, he's selling watches, okay. Yeah. I don't know why he needs to or has to or that, well, it's a buck, I suppose, shit. But but he gets accused because he's exaggerating constantly, But the thing with Biden is Biden tells really concrete black and white lies. Famous one, to me, the most famous one. He said, when I took office, inflation was at 9%. No, it wasn't. It was at 1.4%. It wasn't even close to 9%. And you have to understand the economics, the theory here, folks, is inflation. You want inflation under 2%, which is what the Fed's been trying to do, tame this horse that got out of the barn for the last 3 years. They've been trying to get, and it isn't quite yet. I mean, I think the last I saw it's at 2.4%. Any inflation under 2% is not only acceptable, but actually desirable. You want a tiny little bit of it. And so that's where it was when he took office. No, he brought it to 9%. And now the people, everything's a mystery wrapped in a conundrum. And everyone's wondering, well, is it that he doesn't know this? Or is he told differently? Or is he just lying and making crap up? And I don't know the answer to that. I don't know what, it's obvious his staff is driving stuff. Even all this stuff that's happened lately, the thing about this more student loans and all this sort of stuff. I'm sure Biden's been told that he's done some of the stuff, but I don't think he's actually done it. I don't. The man is really, at this point, he's barely alive. He gave his final foreign policy speech, was it Monday or Friday? I can't remember, a couple days ago. And he could barely get through it. I mean, he couldn't understand him. He's mumbling, this man, I was thinking about taking, who was I talking with? Talking to Jeff, I think it was, about taking bets on whether he'll even make it through the end of the year. I don't know if he will. I mean, he is not physically not doing well. And that may explain a lot of his personality issues. A senior advisor of his, which went unnamed, was talking, I think it was to the New York Post, and he said that Biden's personality markedly changed the first couple of years of his presidency. He hasn't been the same since. Now that might be because of old age. I don't know. People said the same thing about Dick Cheney, and that was attributed largely to his heart issues. Because I don't know if you know this, people who have heart attacks, really major heart attacks or really major heart issues, there's a medical documented case about the fact it seems to change their personalities. My wife is like the most liberal person on earth. And when George W. Bush was first elected, what she said, well, at least Cheney's there, because he was always considered the voice of reason, and he was until 9/11, and then he flipped out, and he's basically been flipped out ever since. And of course he hates Trump, and Liz Cheney hates Trump. They all hate Trump, and they hate Trump because Trump has destroyed traditional Republican hierarchy that all these people were basically grifting off of. And that's going to be Trump's legacy, and that's what people want. So the other thing about Hegseth and these hearings today is that they're shouting at him, and they're not giving him a chance to talk, and they're throwing stuff out about his personal life and all this sort of stuff. And I'm watching this, I'm thinking, this doesn't work anymore. You can go on and on and on. One of the reasons the Democrats lost the election is that they're playing off a failed old playbook. You know, it's like they seem to think this stuff, all this, of course, Jack Smith put out the final report on his alleging the trial that Donald Trump was going to endure, about the fact that he was going to be charged with attempting to overturn the 2020 election. And it's complete utter crap. I mean, legally, it's complete crap, and everybody knows that, But just the fact that they do this stuff, and they don't seem to have learned. So I think, okay, so Hegseth's on there. First of all, the guy's handsome as hell. I mean, it's like Greg Gutfeld constantly makes fun of him on his talk show about the fact, he's an unbelievably handsome man. So there's that, and he's stoic, and he's a fantastic. He looks like the epitome of a soldier. He just does. And so then they're throwing all this stuff at him, and he's handling it with aplomb. And I'm just thinking, well, I just think that this is not going to work for them. It's going to make the Democrats look bad, but they don't seem to know or care this. They don't seem to know that they're looking bad. You can call me up. 325 call Jim. 325-225-5546. Give me a call. I'm looking at I got a dashboard here that takes your calls. And so then there's the other thing. Biden said this other lie during his his foreign policy speech about the fact that he's still going on this thing about the fact that the biggest single threat to the world is climate change. And the people, Newsom and Karen Bass, the mayor of Los Angeles, they're saying that all these fires happen because of climate change. First of all, that's patently and completely false. But the other thing is, climate change in terms of human interaction doesn't exist. And I've talked about this before. I'm going to tell you about it again, because I do this show. There's two things I'm trying to accomplish with this program. Is I want to get the word out that the aliens are here. They're coming. They're already here, and we'll talk about it later. And secondly, that climate change in terms of humans affecting it is completely bogus. And that once again, that is that's a subject that also is extremely complex. So I have to qualify it again. Global warming versus climate change. They're two different things. Global warming is real. The world has been warming up for the last 300 years. All that stuff you see about all the glaciers in Alaska and all that sort of stuff, that's all happening. People aren't making that up. They aren't. The world is warming up. Now, climate change, as opposed to global warming, climate change it goes into the presumption when people use that term that humans are causing it. So in other words, the real term is human caused climate change. That does not exist. Humans are either having a very minor effect or none at all. So now, how do I know that? I have scientists on the show, Patrick Moore, probably one of the premier climatologists in America, and also a founder of Greenpeace. His show, he came on over a year ago, and his show is the single most watched broadcast of this of the series so far, still. And so, yeah, he's a former founder of Greenpeace, and he bailed out of Greenpeace for two reasons. He said it was becoming a money grubbing organization, like many giant nonprofits are starting to exist only to make money to feed itself. And secondly, about the fact that they were talking about climate change, and he said he knew as a climatologist that climate change was bullshit. And he's written a fantastic book, and I should post it's on our blog, but it's been so long I should post it again. It's called Something Something and Threats of Doom. It has an unusual title, and it's not too long, but I do have to tell you, it's a little scientifically dense. There aren't any formulas in there, but there's a lot of charts and graphs, and you might not enjoy reading it per se. I told him that, and he defended himself. He said, but the other thing is, I also told him, you made an extremely complex scientific subject as simple as you could do it, and he did. So in that sense, he succeeded. But it's not a simple subject. It just isn't. So according to Patrick Moore and a lot of other climatologists, that the reason the world's warming up, and I gotta look in the book again. I gotta remember the name of it. I can't remember the name of this term. It's named after a Russian scientist, starts with an M, but the term is for the wobble of the Earth around the sun, the revolution. They're not rotations. That's the Earth on its axis. It's the wobble of the Earth's rotation around the sun. Now, what happens is that the rest of the solar system, especially the three big bodies, Jupiter, Saturn, and Uranus, they pull on the Earth's orbit the same way the moon pulls on the tides on Earth. The same way. It's the same thing. They're large bodies with gravitation, and depending on where they're at with this complex order of these four bodies, it depends on how far off of the mean Earth is from its normally intended path. And right now, we're a little closer to the sun than we're supposed to be, and that's the reason. That is the reason the world's warming up. That's the reason. It has nothing to do with humans at all. And then on top of that, and he makes this point in his book and made this point on our broadcast too. If I will, I'm gonna at least post the broadcast, if not the book. I'll post it again because it's really fascinating. He says that. Okay, where was I? Oh Jesus, God, Jim, what was I talking about? I'm talking about Patrick Moore and the climate thing, and he says that yeah, it has to do with the world, or the Earth's revolution around the sun, and CO2. That's what I was going to say. So he makes a very good point about the fact that people think CO2, carbon dioxide, is equated with pollution and that it's bad. And not only is that not true, it's the opposite. We need more CO2. That's the terrible thing. Also, he also brings up that there's a lot of evidence to indicate that CO2 does not create the greenhouse effect that people are talking about. So it's like, he said, no, we're almost the Earth right now is at 400 parts per million CO2. If it gets below 150, we all die. And this is one of the lowest it's ever been in recorded or even projected, extrapolated history. He said you can go back like hundreds of thousands and maybe millions of years. It's never been this low. And so he said we actually need more CO2. But so okay, as with everything, there's a silver lining of truth to this climate change bullshit, and that is pollution's terrible. That's the thing. Nobody wants a dirty planet, So we're spouting all, we're coal-fired plants and all this sort of stuff. Believe it or not, we in America, we've gotten a lot better. We only now contribute 15% of the global pollution, air pollution in the world. Between China and India put out 2/3 of it, and they don't seem to care. China doesn't seem to care at all. They just keep building coal-fired power plants and putting stuff up, and cars used to spew out a lot of pollution. Now it's a lot less. I mean, we've gotten way better at this, which is a terrible thing about the environmentalists, because they want a perfect world. It's like, for example, supposedly the reservoirs in Los Angeles were not filled with water for fire prevention because of of some environmental complaint about hurting some sort of fish. It's like, and this fish apparently isn't even endangered. That's the thing. It's like, I can't remember what it's called, but and so yeah, that's a standard deal, right? It's like, well, no, you can't do that because it's going to hurt something somewhere. So, no, it's just bullshit. It's just crap. No one's realistic about any of this stuff. I don't understand how I've been talking about this for 4 years. how the Democratic Party turned their entire agenda over to 20% of the members that are complete lunatics. I do not think Democrats and liberals are lunatics. Generally, I don't. But yeah, there's a minority of the party that now controls it, and they're batshit crazy. I don't get it, but they control things, you know. But there's plenty of. I mean, I live here in liberal land here in Minnesota. Most of my friends, almost everybody I associate with, is politically liberal, and they're not crazy. Most of them, a few of them are. I'm not naming any names, but but yeah, that's the problem. 20% of the Democratic Party is absolutely stone cold nuts, but they're controlling everything, and I don't know how it got to that point. I really don't. All right, let's move on. Let's move on. All right, normally, okay, I'll play a bumper here. Here we go. It's time for the UFO news. This is actually not just UFO news. This is science news. This is the paranormal stuff. I'm known for this. I know a lot about it. God bless my friend Jazz Shaw. He passed away on October 29th. It's like, used to love having him on the show. He was like, I always said he was my brother from another mother because he had the exact same gig on the internet that I did. And as he wrote about two things, politics and UFOs. And that's what I talk about too. So I just want to point out to you that on December 11th, this did not make the news much at all. It basically got buried. But a supposed quote unquote UFO hit a jet that was landing at Palm Beach Airport in Florida. Now, they're using the term UFO as unidentified flying object, not necessarily some extraterrestrial thing. They don't know if it was a drone or what. And that's the problem. They literally don't know what it was. But it hit this jet as it was trying to land. And the jet landed safely, and they never found the object, whatever it was. But the reason I'm bringing this up is that about the people that have these drones over New Jersey, and they're actually showing up more and more places, and that might be because people are looking for them. But there's a problem here, folks, and that is, and more people are starting to talk about this. There's two types of drones. There's drones with propellers, various configurations. Some of them are like, the four propeller kind that look like your tiny little amateur drone, except they're large. They're about the size of a large car. And then you have drones that with a single propeller in the back that are like airplanes. You got those that fly with wings being pushed forward. You got those. Then you have drones that apparently are silver spheres that fly by no means of propulsion whatsoever. And they're being mixed up. That's the thing. So what are the sphere drones? Well, they're probably not from this planet. That's probably what's going on, So the thing is, these two things are being confused. They're being mixed together and confused in the public's mind. Now, a lot of more and more people are coming to say that maybe that. Well, first of all, I have to say there's a good possibility that those spherical drones with no means of propulsion might be ours, because I've said I do believe that there's a small cadre of the military, U.S. military, the Pentagon, that's probably 50 to 100 years ahead of everybody else in terms of technology. And I think they got that technology from reverse engineering crashed extraterrestrial spacecraft. But that said, too, there's a big portion of the Pentagon, and Jazz knew this because Jazz was plugged into these people, that actually said that no, we have the crashed spacecraft, but we haven't had no success in reverse engineering them at all, that they can't figure it out, that the technology is so beyond us that they literally can't figure it out. So I don't know what to believe. I mean, I've always assumed that this is somehow contributed to earthly devices, but I don't know for sure. I don't. But at any rate, there's two different types of drones. You have propeller drones and you have UFOs. And some people think that this is all a giant experiment to see how the public would react to aliens landing on Earth. And I know that sounds weird, but the thing is, it's going to happen eventually. Well, probably not my lifetime. I don't think so. I don't think. I mean, what I actually think was probably the most likely scenario is that the aliens will fill our skies with spacecraft that are so blatantly obvious, like like in Independence Day when the giant mothership flies over New York City, that we'll see that stuff. But that doesn't mean they're going to land. That doesn't mean they're going to contact us. Now this sounds like I'm getting off on a tangent here, but actually I'm not. This is another subject here. A guy named Lorenzo Gavesino, and he's a theoretical and mathematical physicist at Vanderbilt University. He says he's figured out that not only is time travel possible, but he says based on the way he's figured this out, there's always been the grandfather paradox of time travel. Like, what happens if you went back in time and killed your grandfather and then came back? Well, you shouldn't exist. He's starting to think that under his scenario, that's impossible. That you could go back and you could kill your grandfather, but when you came back, nothing would change. That's what he says, and he says it all has to do with quantum physics. It's something called closed timeline curves. Now, I was reading about this on the debrief.org, which is, and Jazz Shaw used to write for the debrief.org, and it's a fairly nerdy scientific website. It's mostly, I'll be blunt, it's mostly for defense contractors and scientists. And this article was pretty dense. I understood it, but still, I don't know. I'm not to put you down, but I don't know if you want to or have the time to do it or whatever. But at any rate, he says that what happens is because of quantum physics, that the way you would actually travel back in time involves something called closed time-like curves, which means that you go back in time, and in the process of going back in time, the quantum makeup of your spacecraft and you change, and then when you come back, it changes back. That's basically what's going on here. So he says you could travel back in time, and you can, like, I don't know, pick a date. Let's say New York City, 1950. You could go there. First of all, you're not really you based on his theory. I think I've got this correct because this is really complex stuff. But you are a sentient being and you're intact. And so you're walking around New York City in 1950, and let's say you kill, Richard Nixon's father or something like that. When you come back, Richard Nixon will still have been president, and you are the person you are when you left. As a matter of fact, he seems to think there's a possibility that because of the quantum changes in your brain, you wouldn't even remember making the trip. And that is, so in other words, the trip is real. You go back and you do a bunch of stuff that is antithetical to history, and you come back, and not only would history not change, but you wouldn't even remember being there. That's the implication he's making here. But it's fascinating, but he might be onto something. So in his world, I mean, we are way beyond the technology to do this. We're not even close. We can't even come close to doing this at this point. But he might have kind of figured this out. So this is being kind of lauded in scientific circles and also up for much debate too. It's like what was I just going to compare it to? So yeah, you go back in time, you come back. Oh hell, I don't know. Meanwhile, in the UK, Nick Pope, and you've probably seen him on Ancient Aliens, and he's the British guy who used to work for what was called the UFO desk at the Ministry of Defense in the United Kingdom. It turned they didn't actually have a name for it, but that was his job. His job was to process UFO reports, and he did it for about 10 years. So he released a map of the primary places in England where people have close encounters of the fifth kind, that is, they run into aliens. He just did that. He has said too, now this is really interesting, because this is the one thing that Jazz Shaw and I disagreed on. And that is he thought that, if the government or the military is aware of the fact that aliens are coming here, we should tell the public. He thought that. I wasn't so sure, mostly because my logic at the time was that if you tell Americans, okay, maybe Americans can handle it, but I don't know if a lot of the rest of the world can. That was because you tell America, you tell everybody, and there's a lot of cultures there. People are particularly steeped in religion or whatever, and it kind of blows their belief system, and people could maybe not handle this. Now, there's Oh man, God, I might need to take a memory pill or something. I need some Prevagen or something like that. Why? All right. Why did I bring this up? About the fact that Nick Pope. Oh, this is why I brought it up. So Nick Pope recently said in a separate, like on some podcast, he said that he always thought that the governments of the world deserved or owed it to the citizens to tell them that the UFOs are here. Except he said COVID changed his mind. He said we reacted as a civilization so crazy to COVID, which is basically like a bad version of the flu, and it always was. I mean, I was doing Kong News. I was keeping track of this uh, when this started in March 2020. And then by May, it was plainly obvious that this was a disease of the old and the sick. Matter of fact, it wasn't until very late in the pandemic that more people died of COVID than died of the flu. It was very late in it, and so yeah, and so he said, how the world's reaction to COVID was so overblown that he thinks that maybe he's changed his mind. He said that I don't know if we can handle hearing about the fact that the extraterrestrials are here. I don't know, so at any rate, that's a interesting point of view. And then on latest UFO sightings.net, which if you want to read something, I'll put a link up to that too because it's a crazy URL. But they did a story on in the UFO community, it's almost like there's almost like a given that they're coming here. I mean, I've thought this for years. I have no trouble. I've embraced this. I think like a friend of mine said during lunch, he said, well, he said, okay, you were vindicated by that stuff in the New York Times in 2017, but it was only a very narrow range about the fact that, the government, no one said those things are extraterrestrial. Those things flying around the Nimitz and our guys flying F-15s and stuff like that. But they're real. I mean, it's a universally acknowledged fact that these guys are flying around real flying machines. That these things do fly, and they're real, and they're in the atmosphere, and they're flying around. But like my friend said, there's no proof they're extraterrestrial. But I use like Occam's razor. It's like, well, if they aren't, what are they? Because we aren't building them. Well, and there's the other thing too. This goes full circle. My friend's also in defense contracting. He says everyone he talks to in the defense industry says that those are ours. And I think that too, but I think they got the technology from crash extraterrestrial spacecraft. I really do. I don't think that was such a huge, let's be a huge leap in science to just suddenly come up with this stuff that I don't think we're capable of it. I think they glommed it off of somebody else flying around other places. Well, anyway, UFO sightings.net, they're writing about the fact that they write an article about why the UFOs are coming here, and there's all sorts of different reasons. The one that they left for last, which is of course the scariest one, is that the whole entire that humanity on Earth is just basically one ET experiment, and they're just coming here to tend to their garden, that's pretty scary. And who knows if that, obviously there's no proof that that's true. Uh, and so now I'm going on because we're going to wrap this up here in a few minutes. I'm going on to the perv news. I'm an old perv, and I know you are too. So I just thought there's a woman, an only fans star named Bonnie Blue, who says that she just broke the record for sleeping with I'm using it as a euphemism, having sex with 10,057 men in a 12-hour period. Now I did the math. That means she had every guy was inside of her maybe about 40 seconds. She's an attractive girl. I saw the pictures. I'll post that too. That was on the New York Post. Yeah, yeah. So, yeah, she had sex with 1,057 men, and she's getting, of course, vilified for this, because that's wrong. I don't care. It's like, do what you want, babe. It's fine. I don't understand how your body can put up with that. I mean, it's like It's like playing tennis 12 hours nonstop. Well, not really, but kind of like that. So another thing, though, the Daily Star of the UK, they wrote a story about the fact that the latest vibrators can be controlled via Wi-Fi and are apparently have been hacked by China. So so oh man, I'm just entertaining myself. Your vibrator could harm you based on what some Chinese hackers doing. That's the thing. Okay, you got that? And there's don't use the Chinese vibrators. Don't use them. And finally, and this is what I'm talking about with JD Vance when he called. So somebody did a study on breast size by country. So, which women in the world have the biggest breasts by country? Number one was Norway. Now, I know you're thinking, where's United States is 2 and the UK is 3, but number one was Norway. And the real amazing thing that people who did the study is that, as a general rule, breast size kind of tracks with obesity, because if you're an overweight woman, your breasts are probably bigger just from being overweight alone. But in Norway, it was the opposite. Norway had one of the lowest BMIs of all the women on the survey, but they had the biggest breasts. So you're wasting your time in the United States, folks. And all those people, those guys who call us from Singapore and Sydney, yeah, right. We got it going on. So I'm gonna get I'm gonna get t-shirts made with that. I decided that's the slogan of our show. We got it going on. All right, folks. So here's the deal. As I said, we're going to be off tomorrow. Jennifer Oliver O'Connell and Jeff Meyer will be here on Thursday, and starting next week, we're running Monday, Wednesday, and Friday permanently. So I want to thank you for listening tonight or watching. I want to thank you also for putting up. We had about it was partly the holidays too, but we had about 3 months of kind of bullshit here. So, but it's over. So, yeah. I'm just looking at there's a lot of buzzers, a lot of buttons, a lot of meters, a lot of all sorts of stuff flashing and stuff like that. And I'm controlling it because I'm the guy. Good night, Esperanza. Good night, Uncle Donnie. And good night to you wherever you are. We'll see you on Thursday night, everybody. Take care. Thanks for watching.